Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at a RedBear MK60. This will be the first video I've shot in the new shop here. I've got a lot more room to work. Well, without further ado, let's open it up first and see what it looks like inside. The customer that dropped this off told me that it had a cap job done to it. It looks like they replaced a lot of caps that probably didn't need to be replaced. Let's see if they actually changed a filter cap. The first thing I noticed when before I even opened it was that was not changed out at all. You're not doing yourself any favors by just doing a partial recap, even if one checks out okay at the time of installation. It's really a waste of time because now I'm going to go back and redo them all anyway. This one's been replaced. These two and these two have also been replaced, which they didn't need to. There's no reason. These caps here were not electrolytic to begin with. There's nothing in there that's going to dry out. I mean, they can fail. Any part in here can fail, but those typically don't. And it's kind of a bummer because really that would have kept the amp all original for the most part. So this is redone, and it feels pretty solid, but you should have some kind of silicone or RTV or something to hold this down. And I can't tell if these two capacitors in the bias circuit have been replaced or not, so we're going to go ahead and redo those as well. So looking at the cap job here, I don't know if you can see how loose they are, but that's not good either. I mean, that's a lot of weight that's being put down here. Probably it wouldn't matter. It would probably be fine. It would never. I don't really think that's enough to affect anything, but it's again, it's like they went through the trouble to make this circuit board for it. So it's like, why wouldn't you take the extra time and put something on there that would keep these guys steady, you know? The fact that I can move them and the fact that you've got a turret here that's even, you can't see it with the camera unless I do a close-up, but the turret itself is loose. Like I can almost push it back through. Just wanted to do a close-up on these two pieces here. I almost want to change them out just because aesthetically it doesn't go with the rest of the amp. I don't think I'm ever going to find blue ones. I do have some reds, I think, or polypropylene that'll go in there. They'll look a little better than these polyester film ones. The tube heater wiring has been converted to use 12AX7s, ECC 83s. It's okay. You can probably tighten that up a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to go that deep into it. You really want all this heater wiring to lay flat. Definitely clean up this output wiring here, shorten these leads up, get them away, get everything away from these heaters. And another problem with it, with things being intermittent, you know, I rolled this master here and it's got like a slight divot in it. When you rotate it, you can feel something catch. And it's very slight. Power amp, it catches slightly at 6. Now the treble knob's gone, so it probably got banged off. And there's a very noticeable stop in it, which shouldn't be there. The mid knob's got a lot of play to it as well. Bass knob's got another divot in it. So this thing has been hit in the front and it's damaged all the pots. So what I would recommend to get this thing in tip-top shape is we replace all the pots on the front, we redo the cap job right. Also, the cap values on this, these are two 220 UF capacitors, and I've pulled as many schematics as I possibly could on this thing, and I don't see any of that value. The closest one I could find, other than the MK120, was the like an MK60 combo, and that shows 4 100 UF capacitors. So I would say that we should take these two out and put 100 on there. There's a whole host of problems with this one that I can just see from opening it up. We don't even have to turn it on to see those. You know, first off, you've got these potentiometers here. The most obvious one is there's a definite dead spot in the treble knob. There's one in the master volume knob too. The other thing is they told me that this amp had a cap job done to it. When he dropped it off, first thing I noticed was this big cap back here was not changed out. So you got an incomplete cap job. Don't really know an easier way to say it other than that. I guess whoever did it had gone to the trouble of building an actual board for it. This was done, he even wrote on there, June of last year. I don't know why you'd go to all this trouble and leave this one. So one of the turrets on the back side here is actually very, very loose. It's not, I can pick it up and push it back down. I don't think that affects the solder joint at all, but it's still not good. Same with this. There's nothing holding this thing down. You can see it. You can see it vibrate like a spring when I pluck it. So we have to do something about that. I'm not sure if I'll rebuild a board like this or if I'll just use, you know, can caps. I feel pretty confident that if we just take care of all that stuff now, we'll fire it back up and there'll be no problems, because it's got to be related to one of the two of these things. There's just no sense in troubleshooting it with all this stuff wrong with it right now. So I'll give the client a call, let him know what's up, and we'll dig into this guy. All right, so all of our parts came in, so let's just keep cracking. Let's just get it apart. This is gonna kind of suck because these transformers are in the way of the arms for the drill press. But remember, always wear eye protection. Cool. Look, our doghouse box fits right on top. These film caps here and replacing them with. Now I managed to find blue ones, which is really hard to do because I wanted to match the aesthetic of what was here originally, and you know, not the exact color blue, but close enough. And these are also, these are 0.1 microfarad. These are actually 0.15, which is shown on the drawings, or shown on the schematics. But I will say I have seen photographs of these amps with even 0.22 microfarad resistors here. Which I have some of those as well, but we're going to go with what the schematic says first. Put them all in kind of upside down like that. Pop them out. Flip them over. They're all in together. As I'm putting everything back together, I've also noticed that both treble peaking circuits have been removed. You basically have on the low input from here to this preamp gain knob, this is the first treble peaking circuit, followed by another, what they call a bright cap. The bright cap was also removed. I'm going to install this across the preamp volume knob, and I'm going to install this to the knob. And they're easy enough that if the amp sounds too bright later on, we can just cut these right back out. It's not a big deal. But we have a problem here. That heater wire is resting right on this nut. Right on the chassis. This kind of looks like a rat's nest, but with me trying to retrofit stuff in here, and I'm trying to keep the footprint of that doghouse that's going to go on the back, I could have laid it out a little bit better if it didn't have to fit in that small space. But aesthetically, maybe not so great, but functional, it's going to be rock solid. Got our meters hooked up here. So one of the things that happened was the standby switch was intermittent on one of the sides, and when I took this piece off, because I'm not going to be able to find a replacement for this, at least I don't think so, I saw that one of the connectors inside was pretty burnt and charred up and practically disintegrated. So I've only got one side of a standby switch. Well, what am I supposed to do? Well, normally the standby switch would disconnect the two legs of the secondary that go to the HT section, or that go to the rectifier. Now I've wired one side, so it actually takes the DC from the rectifier and switches that in and out. You only need one wire for that. So that's in good shape. So without further ado, let's power this thing on. I've already got it on here. Bam, and there you go. There we go, look at that. Fuck. I took those tubes out. They had these, I don't know, groove tube KT66s, and they were just fucking humming like crazy. I could not figure that shit out. Look, it's quiet as fuck now. So when I unplug it, it's dead quiet. It's dead quiet. Alright, so now a quick overview of everything we did. This is a new shielded wire that's shielded directly from the input all the way to the grid of the first stage. They had a 33K grid stopper on there, and I replaced it with a 68K, which is what it calls for in the schematics. There's not going to be a big difference in tone there. This was a 33 microfarad cap. Now we replace it with a 22 microfarad, which is what the schematic calls for. 33 probably would have worked, but since we were recapping everything anyway, I just wanted a fresh start, so I went ahead and changed that out. This was one of the old funny looking capacitors that was stock in the amp. We drilled a new hole and put a new JJ5050 microfarad cap in there. These were actually replaced at 1 microfarad. I couldn't find any round blue ones like this, but I wanted to go with blue because that's what everything else is. This is actually a 0.8 microfarad cap, which is the schematic calls for a 0.82. So that's pretty cool. We got something that close. I actually changed both of these bias caps to 10 microfarads each. That's what they are in a standard Marshall. The schematic calls for something slightly different, but we also had to change one of the resistors in the bias circuit to get the bias down a little bit. The snubber caps, they also had like 1 microfarad caps in there, so we replaced those. These are actually 1.5 is what the schematic calls for. You could go up to even like 2.2, it'd still be fine. All they do is just prevent like an audible pop when you're switching the standby in and out. Since it had a lot of these cloth covered wires, I like to keep as much stuff stock as I possibly can, but it just made tracing this stuff back a pain in the ass, so I actually rewired the two HT. I rewired the secondary here, the center and the left and right parts of the high voltage winding. I redid those, and also the standby switch, I'm not going to pull it off again, but I noticed it was kind of, sometimes it was tight and sometimes it wasn't, and I wasn't getting a good connection between these two pins here. So I pulled the top off, and there's 2 little rockers in there. One of them was almost completely disintegrated, and I was surprised it was even making any contact at all. And you can see that it's got a little gangster lean to it. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it got bumped or something, but Either way, I was like, well, what am I going to do? I can't replace this switch. I'm never going to find another one that'll fit. So instead of this switching off the 2 secondary wires, I've just got these wired into the rectifier here, and the DC that comes out via this red wire is what gets interrupted by this switch. Man, just when I thought it was safe to call this thing done. Man, the tube sockets are trash. It's like getting intermittent connections. I can't get any bias on one of the tubes. I've got bias up to the tube, but it's just not getting on the other side. So something's wrong. I think the socket's fucked. Yeah, these are way more snug. Well, it's really late here, and I got a lot of shit to do tomorrow. It's too bad because I really want to take this amp back in the studio and put a mic on it, and so you guys can really get an idea of what it sounds like. It sounds really cool. I didn't know what to expect coming into a RedBear before. It's sitting over there on the bench, but it's plugged into this cabinet here. I mean, I guess I'll just let you hear it. I like how it sounds heavy and it's articulate and it's not overly distorted. The notes come through on the big power chords. Ooh, maybe I should be in tune. I dig it. I dig it a lot. You know, that's actually with the bass all the way down, presence all the way down. We turn the bass up. I just turned the bass up to like 6. That's kind of cool. It's wolfier, but it's not. It's got a lot of bass to it, but it's not muddy. I've got the mid-range all the way up too. Let's see what happens when we just dime the bass. Now turn the presence up to about 6. I actually like the preamp volume, or I actually like the presence all the way down. I kind of want to sit here and jam on this for a while. I really want to record with it because I feel like you can do some like, you know, heavy metal or hard rock tunes, or even like, you know, that it's almost got that Thin Lizzy Chinatown tone to it. Bottom line is, I think in the studio you could probably do a lot with that amp because it feels just like you've got a blank canvas to work with. The foundation is really good. So, yeah, the RedBear MK60, can't say anything about reliability. It's the first one I've ever seen, first one I've ever worked on. On the inside, it's not the best amp ever made. It's not the best put together. There's a few things that could probably be tidied up, a few things that could be laid out a little bit better. It's not far removed from the classic, you know, the JMP, the Marshall, the Butcher, and it's all in the same vein. Well, that concludes the refurbishing of the RedBear MK60. Again, I'm pleasantly surprised with it. I really dig it. You know, I get amps in here that I'm so stoked on I want to go find one and buy one after I'm done working on it. This one, not so much. You know, maybe if you get it for a couple $100, it'd probably be worth it, but I've got enough amps that sound pretty much like this one, and it's not anything completely spectacular, but if you're able to do this work or have this work done to it, I can't attest to how well the transformers are made, but other than that, this thing should be bulletproof. You know, you should be able to take it on the road, beat it up, whatever, and it's going to survive. But I would say that if you can't afford a JCM 800, that's probably the way to go. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you dig the content, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.